I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're exploring the thought-provoking insights in an amazing book. It is called Seeing What Is: The Education Challenges for Teachers and Their Students. It's a wonderful book that is written by a terrific author. Her name is Jacqueline Cox Taylor. And this book is a guide for parents, teachers, students themselves to navigate a complex education system. Join us right now as Jacqueline shares her decades of experience and a unique perspective shaped by Steiner pedagogy observation and gratitude for the children who have inspired her journey. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Prime 7 Media for helping us put her in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below this interview. And be sure to download the Spotlight Network app, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Let's start out by talking a little bit about your philosophy of child development and how it shaped your book.
I'm inspired by the works of Rudolf Steiner, but I've also worked since the early 70s with children who have additional challenges. And working with those children, I've just seen that they're highlighting the challenges of us all. It's just that their challenges are exaggerated. So through working closely with them, I've been able to understand more the behavior of all of us, and particularly children in schools.
How do children decide what they learn, as you discuss in your book?
Um, they do decide what they learn. It's true. It's what fires really reaches their interest, but they're also directed by how their body is feeling or how they're feeling, and that's the way it is for all of us. We can really focus and learn things if we're really interested, and we can ignore physical signs. We can ignore hunger, bathroom signs, all of those if we're really interested. But if we're not really interested, then the hunger kicks in and we have to go off for a little snack.
Exactly. And also, that's what separates your A student from your C student in many cases. You'll have a student who's intrigued by one subject and will get an A, but not intrigued by another subject and will get an F. And it'll wind up being, this run-of-the-mill student where this student truly has great potential. They can do A work. They're not limited to C work, but it's a matter of getting their attention and getting the message across, right?
Exactly. And all right, some children can also be encouraged to really work hard at absolutely anything that people bring towards them. But for most of us, interest really makes a difference. And that is, if you've got things happening in your body, to overcome those, you really need to be interested in what you're learning.
Yeah. Like you said, hunger is one of them. Tiredness is another. Sometimes school really starts too early for children, right?
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
it's an outdated system, school. I mean, it was devised in, you know, the time when we wanted people in factories, when we wanted people to go to war. It hasn't really been changed since.
Right.
It's a system that treats a group, and everybody wants to be an entrepreneur now. Nobody wants to actually work on a factory floor. That's not where the generations of young people are sitting. I mean, all right, those jobs need to be done, but that's not what fires their imagination.
Yeah. In this digital age, you would think that the education system and methodologies of teaching students would have improved. Because if you're trying to teach children about World War II, for example, there could be an immersive production put together with lots of great information that would capture children's interest, as opposed to the old model of the teacher writing on the board, maybe using some kind of display from the computer and just talking to the students, right? Lecturing.
That's right. But additional to that is it's like technology is great and bringing, an immersive situation, but Steiner philosophy looks that there's three parts to this person, and there's the one which is that thinking one. There's the
Mhm.
feeling part, which you're going to get when you bring immersive technology. But there's also a physical body that to really digest something, you need to make use of. It's like we digest our food, we also need to digest our information. And you can't do that if you're not fully into that body. So if you stay just in the head and the feelings, which is technology tends to do, it
Mhm.
can cause a lot of anxiety if you're not, which is why people go to the gym and do physical activity. They try to balance themselves. They try to have a balance of what we call thinking, feeling, and willing. So that's thinking, your feeling life, and your actual physical action body.
Yeah. How do you feel educators can better accommodate diverse learning styles?
Well, I think they need to realize that they've got these three parts to these children. So they need to work with that physical body. The children need to feel totally in control of it. It's your own unique system, and you need to be in control of it. So when in the early years there needs to be a lot of movement, a lot of you start from gross motor, big actions, then into smaller actions. When you bring the intellect and the feeling life in, the more that they feel that they've got a handle on it. It's children are very worried nowadays because they know everything. They know what's happening the other side of the world, and they can't do anything about it.
Mm.
Whereas if they're put into situations where they can do something about it, they physically can. It's like a spider is not so frightening if you're able to know that you can put a cup over it and take it
Mm.
outside. It's only frightening when you're looking at it and you don't know what to do with it and you freeze your physical body.
Yeah. So do you feel that the education system needs to be less passive, that children need to be more physical during their day of learning?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Yeah.
Life is very passive. We travel huge distances just sitting down. We travel
Mm.
huge distances by just watching a screen. I mean, I'm with you today, and
Yeah.
there's a whole globe between us.
Yeah.
Um, that's that's challenging, and
Mm.
that can cause anxiety. The more you actually are active, um, the more you can relax. And
Mm.
and the world is full of anxiety at the moment. Parents are very scared. They don't let their children out of their sight. They don't allow them to do things because they're scared. They're just frightened
Mm.
that this physical body is not going to stand up for them. So yeah,
Yeah.
the more you take that on, I think, yeah, the more balanced these children will be, and the more open they will be to learning the huge education that's out there for them.
Yeah, there's also such a unfounded fear of strangers out there in society, that people
Yeah,
are
there
afraid
is.
of children abductions. Children abductions are extremely rare. The numbers have been inflated by custodial abductions. Mom taking the kid when she's not supposed to, or dad taking the kid when he's not supposed to, according to a court order. But a child being plucked from a playground, extremely rare, and society paralyzes and finds that child immediately when there's a situation like that, a true Amber Alert. So unfortunately, a lot of the physicality and the freedom that you and I might have had growing up, children today don't have because they are kept on a leash by their kids, by their parents who are afraid, right?
That's true, and also there's a misconception. Parents are aware that physical exercise is valuable, but there's sort of a misconception that you're in your physical body. If at 5 you're very good with a soccer ball, but
Mhm.
it's like that's only part. That's
Hmm.
only that's only part of you, and that's a very direct part. You know, I watch children, and yes, they're motivated to kick a ball and they play that, but then you put them in the classroom, and their ability to manipulate their arms and their hands and really come into their body and relax into it, they're still up there,
Hmm.
like in an anxious position, and just the feet are moving, and the head. There's this whole rhythmic system in the middle that's not relaxed and not able to. It's this middle section that really is the human section, and they're not in it.
So what do you think? Should we get the kids out of the desks? How do we teach children about mathematics or history in more of an active way where they're not just sitting there listening to the professor or the teacher or whatever the case might be?
I think particularly in the early years, that's definitely the case that, you can learn a lot about mathematics by being out in nature.
Mm.
Mathematics comes from nature. If you want to learn about um, division and addition, you just have to look at the plant life. You can see, how one becomes many more when you're looking at
Yeah.
leaves and plants. Yeah, I think physically active in the early years, really um, active learning does it goes into the body more, and you're more likely to remember it. Quite often, information that just goes straight into the head sits there and can come straight back out again the way it went in. It's not actually worked on. It's not
Yeah.
really digested or understood. It's just, everybody knows how to cram for an exam, and you take it in and you remember it and you write it in the exam, and then the next day you have no idea
All
what it
gone.
was.
Yeah.
It's just temporarily held in the head.
Yeah. Mark Twain famously said, all of my life's been a learning experience, except those
Yes,
years I spent in school.
it's very clever.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think I learned more during my summer breaks than I did in the classroom as well. And I certainly learned a lot more on my internships in college than I did from my college classes. I knew nothing about media, communications, and acting from my classes, but I learned that from performing on stage, going into, CBS News and learning there. And that was a very active approach, and it worked for me. I'm sure it would work for others. How has, or what kind of impact has your own experience as a mother and a grandmother had on your research and on your philosophies?
And I've got 5 children, and it definitely made a difference. I remember very clearly as a teacher before I had children. I remember an example where a mother said to me, this child would not wash his hair. And I was like, oh, come on, how hard is that? He's 7. You take his head, you put it under the tap, wash it around a bit, you take it out. But once you become a mother, you realize there's a whole emotional thing there. So
Hmm.
it's like this child that won't wash its hair. Are you going to do that in the morning before you send it to school so it goes off tearful, upset? So the
Yeah.
last thing you see before is tears. Or are you going to do it at bedtime so that they go off to sleep? Tip, no, you're not. You're going to start thinking, how important actually is this hair washing? What am I going to do? What can I put in place to make this a warm, happy experience? So, as being a mother, that really taught me to engage my feelings when working with these children. And as a grandmother, I, before being a grandmother, I could be very judgmental of parents
Hmm.
because today's children are different, and I watch closely my um, children dealing with their children, and it's not as easy as it used to be, and it's
Hmm.
not because they're bad parents, not at all. They're patient, they're trying, but these young people coming through today have a mind of their own, and
Hmm.
they see through these adults. And I watch with in awe, thinking that this is a different job.
Hmm.
So yes, it's been
Yeah,
very helpful.
absolutely. Who's your target audience for this book, and what do you hope readers take away from it?
Um, I want parents, I suppose, and teachers, and also people who create education systems,
Hmm.
see the children, see that they're not just a bucket to be filled. They're not. They are a the old thing is they are a fire to be lit. They have a
Hmm.
lot. They bring a lot. Even the child who presents supposedly with a disability, if you really observe them, you'll see that within their behavior is all of us. And they're just really showing you that what is a need for every child and for every adult to develop and learn in this world.
Hmm.
So
My observation has been, and of course it's anecdotal, but I've worked as a college professor. Um, Students who are homeschooled are much better learners and much better prepared for college than kids who go through the normal route. Has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, I mean, they're seen if they're at home,
Hmm.
just homeschooled, they're actually seen by the people that are educating them,
Yeah.
and a lot less time is wasted in just crowd control.
Yeah.
When you take one child, they're amazing, and you can see their qualities, and you can work with them. You
Hmm.
put them in a group, they have to cope with being in a group and following group instructions and feeling just feeling unseen. So quite often they then act out because it's a bit like, look at me, just see I'm wonderful. And if you don't see I'm wonderful because I'm working hard, see I'm wonderful because I've just disrupted everything. Um, you know,
Yeah,
yeah.
schools are like any other institution. They're like hospitals, prisons, nursing homes, and schools. They all have a lot in common. They're dealing with a lot of people. You're not getting individualized care. You sometimes feel like a number, and you're not necessarily getting the best quality of service, right?
Well, and politicians and parliaments. I mean, you
Yeah,
listen to any parliamentary thing, and the person who wants to be heard is making himself heard
exactly.
in some way,
Yep. The
not
kid.
necessarily in a quiet way.
Yep, exactly. The name of the book is Seeing What Is the Education Challenges for Teachers and Their Students. It is a research-driven work that examines how children learn, what influences their learning, and the challenges facing educators and parents in today's complex education system. Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you very much. It's been lovely to be here. Thank you.
Lovely speaking with you as well. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.